The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious. The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of the Scottish Independence podcast. This week I've managed to get someone who's a member of two groups I was hoping to attract onto the podcast, and that's Labour For Indy and Republic Scotland. His name's Paul Leinster, and we'll just go straight to the conversation. I'll have a word with you at the end. Paul, how's it going?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. And I've been hunting for a while to get a guest on the show who was from Labour For Indy and also someone from Republic, but I've been lucky because you're in both. So,
yeah.
Two for the price of one. So I suppose we should start with the Labour For Indy. Can I just ask why you joined that group?
Well, I've been a member of the Labour Party since 2006, since I turned 18, and I've never been massively enthusiastic, but I was quite happy to keep, paying my money every month. And then just over the past few years as well, I just had to come round to the idea of supporting independence. So when I saw that Labour For Independence had been set up as a group, it was just perfect for me. I think that kind of some of the stuff that Labour For Independence stands for, like going back to Labour's roots, trying to make it far more of a socialist party again as well, that appealed to me quite a lot, far more than what the current leadership of the Labour Party is offering.
Yeah. And is it fair to say it's in some ways a kind of battle between old Labour and new Labour?
Yeah, in a lot of ways it is. And it's obviously, there's the pro-independence plus the unionist aspect to it as well.
Mm-hmm. That's the interesting part because I believe there's been quite a lot of resistance within some of the more new Labourite elements of Scottish Labour to Labour For Indy. Is there something, there's been a lot of abuse that comes out on Twitter and various things. I mean, how does the Labour For Indy group feel about the way that some of the other people in the party are reacting towards you?
Initially, it was just baffling because in a lot of ways, independence is just one, it's just another party policy, or, unionism is just another party policy. So, and there's not this much, say someone wants to go against party policy and renationalise the Royal Mail, for example, there's not this much kind of hatred towards them. And it's just, initially it was just bizarre that they would launch such an attack on a group of people that oppose one of the party's policies.
Why do you think they've done that?
I think it's just pure tribalism. It's just the SNP supports independence, so Scottish Labour will oppose it and, oppose anyone that supports independence. I think it's as simple as that. Just to do, the SNP says black, Scottish Labour says white. It's that simple, I think. And
do you think it makes for quite strange bedfellows as a Labour member seeing, a lot of the Labour Party in bed with the Tories on this particular issue, but attacking their own party?
Yeah, definitely. And being part of the Yes campaign, I'm far more comfortable alongside the SNP than I would imagine Labour unionists are alongside the Tories.
Is that because you're an SNP front?
It's not, but if you look at the SNP and the Labour manifestos at the last election, they were just about identical. So the two parties are essentially incredibly similar, apart from this one thing that divides them. So it just makes sense to me that, I would be happy to work alongside them. And I find the whole tribalism of it, I just find it really difficult to understand.
No, I mean, I was joking, the SNP front, but I mean, again, how did the group feel when that story came out? It was quite bizarre.
It was, and the way it kind of started, the fact that SNP members happened to have their photo taken next to one of our banners or with a leaflet, it's just amazing that they created a story out of something that to us was just basically meaningless. The accusation was that we were trying to deceive people we were an SNP front. We were trying to deceive people about how many members we had, but it's that thought I don't think ever entered anyone's head. It was never right. Let's get a photo and pretend that these SNP councillors are Labour members. It was just right. We're all out campaigning together. We'll get a photo. It was as simple as that, and so it was just staggering that this non-story just erupted.
You should count yourself lucky. I used to go on some of the marches, the anti-Iraq war marches and things like that. And every time someone took a photo, there was some guy with a Communist Party flag standing. I'm not in the Communist Party. But that happened to me over a period of years. Every march or protest I went to, there's always some guy with a Communist Party flag next to me. It could have been worse. But you said, talking about your members there, I've heard it said that Labour For Indy is the fastest growing group in the Indy movement, in the Yes Scotland camp. How many members have you got now?
I don't actually know how many members. That's kept within a very small group within Labour For Independence, so I don't know the figures. But what I do know is that every time we get more press attention, whether it's negative or positive, the treasurer who deals with the membership, she just is inundated with requests for new members. And if you have a look on Twitter, just about every day you see people tweeting Labour For Indy saying, "Oh, I've just decided to join up." I know that the membership is growing.
So are there public meetings that people can go along to or anything like that?
Well, quite often we will speak at meetings organised by the local Yes groups. Just about every public meeting organised by a local Yes group has a Labour For Independence speaker at it now. We're out about 3 or 4 nights a week speaking at different things. We have had some specific Labour For Independence, public meetings. We had one. We've had a few in Lanarkshire recently, and they seem to attract quite a lot of people. A lot of who are just curious about finding out more about this movement.
Yeah, and when you're out on the doorsteps and stuff and holding stalls, what's the kind of reaction you get when you say that we are Labour For Indy? Because a lot of Scottish people have consistently voted Labour, but Labour's a unionist party. Just speaking to, non-politicos about it, what sort of reaction do you get saying we're Labour For Indy?
Usually the first reaction is that we're surprised that we actually exist, because obviously as the Labour Party has become a unionist party, they're surprised, and it's good to let people know that Yes Scotland and the Yes campaign isn't just the SNP. And we've heard that when we're not there at a street stall, for example, quite often people will just walk straight past if they think it's the SNP or Yes, but if they see the Labour banner, then they'll actually stop and talk to us, because they've got far more of a connection to the Labour name than they do to the SNP.
I've never been a Labour voter, because I grew up with sort of Thatcher and Blair, and that put me off Labour for a long time. But do you think that this is what a lot of the higher ups in the Labour Party, not Labour For Indy, are missing? This independence could be a real chance to rejuvenate first the Labour Party and also politics in Scotland, and they're missing this by holding on to the coattails of London. It's a bit of a leading question, but there you go.
Yeah, definitely. You just need to look at every week when Joanne Lamont stands up during First Minister's questions, and she can't match the SNP on their promises or in their commitments, because she's held back by what London Labour are telling her to do. She can't commit to renationalising the Royal Mail, for example, because London Labour don't want to. She couldn't commit to abolishing the bedroom tax. Obviously, Ed Miliband says he'll do that now, but until he had announced that, Scottish Labour couldn't commit to it because London Labour hadn't done it. So independence would just give the Labour Party in Scotland such a good opportunity to actually come up with their own policy, to come up with policies relevant to the Scottish people rather than the southeast of England.
And it's an interesting question. Why can't they see that opportunity? I mean, it's a very negative reading of the situation, but it's in part because a lot of the people in the Labour Party see a sort of career path that leads to London, and the Scots in London Labour are fighting very hard, in essence, for their careers, and that might be one of the reasons, rather than the idea of independence or the policies within it. It's a kind of fight for the survival of what they see as their kind of right and their job.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that's one of the main reasons. People like, like Jim Murphy or Douglas Alexander, who have actually made it to Westminster, I think they would see it as a massive step down to have to, come back and sit in the Scottish Parliament. And there is this, an aspect of all political parties where you get careerists who will leave university, get a job with the party, stand for the council, stand for Parliament, and they literally make their whole career out of it. And they do see Westminster as the peak of this career, something which they probably don't associate the Scottish Parliament with as much.
Yeah, and as they see it as a step down, they kind of look down on Scotland as a backwater, which might be what creates the kind of too poor, too wee, too stupid mentality in some. And also, according to George Robertson the other day, we don't have a culture. We don't have a language or a culture, apparently. I don't know if you saw that. He did say that.
Yeah, I saw that in that debate that he took part in. Yeah, and that's probably part of going down to Westminster and your life revolving around that group and those circles. You just totally lose touch with what's going on in Scotland.
If we can come on to our second topic today as well, because you're, I remember this would be less divisive for you because you don't have to kind of go between two positions in the party, but you're a member of Republic Scotland, and
yes.
Can you just explain what the group is and what you want?
Republic is a UK-wide pressure group which campaigns for the abolition of the monarchy and replacing it with an elected head of state. And Republic Scotland works as part of that UK-wide campaign, but in Scotland, obviously. And there's a group in Wales, and there's local groups throughout England as well.
Why do you think this would be important? Obviously, Scotland will have an opportunity if it becomes independent to redraw, to try and create a different situation. Why do you think, and you're speaking to the converted here, but why do you think it's important to get rid of the monarchy?
Right, as far as becoming independent is concerned, the idea that in the 21st century you want to create a modern, new country established on principles of democracy and fairness, it just defies all logic that you would retain an unelected, unaccountable, medieval system as your head of state. And given that the head of state is supposed to kind of represent or embody the nation, then, some incredibly wealthy, privileged person sitting down in London is in no way an appropriate head of state for an independent Scotland.
I'm forced to agree, but do you think there's an element, it's something, for me it's quite disappointing that the SNP have this as we're definitely keeping the monarchy. Maybe I think it's a subject for another referendum, but maybe they don't want to create referendum fatigue or something. But I find these ideas about, we can't give them too much democracy a little bit offensive, actually, whoever they're coming from. But have you been a bit disappointed that there's not been any chat about another referendum on this issue?
Yeah, I think though, I do understand that right now the focus has to be on achieving a yes vote, and then once we actually achieve that, we can then talk about, what we want the country to look like, what we want the constitution to be like, what we want or who we want our head of state to be. I have kind of come round to accepting that the important thing right now is just to get the yes vote first. And actually, Republic wrote to Nicola Sturgeon about this, and she said that after a yes vote, then it will be up to the people of Scotland to decide whether or not we keep the monarchy. So she didn't say it was, a definite thing. She just said it was up to the people to decide. So she's definitely not ruled out another referendum at some point on it.
So you wrote to Nicola Sturgeon. Have you got contact and any support within Holyrood?